Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I am with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas, and we would like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
So we're really pleased. This episode, we have Jill Hunter, and Jill is a leadership coach, and we're going to find out more about where her expertise is in this leadership. Thank you for being here, Jill.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So I see you're a registered pharmacist.
I am.
So
And I loved being a pharmacist, but it was time to do something else.
what made you decide to become a pharmacist?
I originally actually wanted to be a doctor,
Okay.
and I didn't want to be on call. And so I thought that pharmacy was a nice, middle of the road type of medical career where you wouldn't have on call. Little did I know that would change 15 years in, where you did have on call.
Really?
So yes, that was a failed move in my career. I was trying to stay away from on call. Oh well.
Okay. So then I saw your bio where you got into, I guess maybe in a management program where the more you excelled in your career, right, the more you advanced, you became training and leadership, and that led you into your coaching career.
Yes. So I ended up being an IV room supervisor, and ended up having to train literally hundreds of employees over the 10 years that I was in that position. So technicians, pharmacists, and ended up going out to nursing homes and training nurses on IV therapy and TPN therapy and things. Then I ended up doing basically developing the people. So when you're an IV technician, you are more skilled than anyone else in the pharmacy. And so I'd have to take them from where they were, build them up, and teach them skills to the point that sometimes I didn't have a position for them to keep them growing. So I'd end up getting them promoted into a position in another company. Didn't really make my bosses that happy with me, but I did what was best for the people.
Fantastic. So in this leadership coaching, do you have a specific target of people that you are helping out?
Yeah, I do really well with situations that were similar to me. So highly educated people who end up getting promoted into management with no leadership training. They figure because you're a pharmacist, because you're a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, that you went to school for so long, you must have had leadership training along the way. The reality is you don't. You get put into the position, your boss says, here's how you do payroll. If there's a scheduling component to the job, they say, here's how you do the scheduling software. And if you have any questions, I'm in the other room. And that's it. And they really don't tell you how to connect with people. They don't tell you how to motivate people. And they don't tell you how to really create a team where everyone wants to be part of something bigger, which is a leader's job, is to pull everyone together.
It's interesting you mentioned that because you're talking about doctors and lawyers, highly educated, highly skilled, but then if they go through law school or medical school and they don't take any business courses and they get out of school, how are they going to set up their practice? You know,
the business courses tend to focus on the finance part, the operations part of how you run it and how you would set it up perhaps, but not actually the people side. The soft skills get pushed aside.
The human resources, really, ultimately. And I think, having been in that situation when I was married, my ex-husband was an engineer, and hand it over to the accountant. I don't need to know anything about finances. Yes, you do. And to deal with that and to be connected to all those people. But then there's a whole side of it too. There's some people you've got to let go. You've got to know those skills.
Yes. And that's the other thing that I can help people with is often when you are promoted into management, they're going to tell you, okay, well, you know, you're going to figure out very quickly, these two are your top performers and these two are your bottom performers. And what are you going to do about them? You need to make a decision of whether to keep them and fix them, if you will, or get rid of them. And that's the toughest thing for a new manager to deal with is how do you make that decision? You might not even know these people. And here you are trying to make life and you know, money decisions for them if they're going to have a job or not. I can actually help people figure out what to do with those people. Basic premise is nobody wants to come to work and do a bad job. You want to come to work and do a good job. I genuinely believe the good in people. And if you believe that, then there's only two reasons that people are going to be doing a poor job. Either they are distracted from something going on in their personal life, or they've been disengaged at work and someone pushed them away or kind of made them go, whoa, what's going on? And I don't want to do this or feel. If you can get to the root of that by working with me, I can teach you how to do that and then help them. If you help them fix something in their personal life, they'll be forever grateful. And if it's something that happened at work, you build trust and get them re-engaged. And suddenly they're like that middle six that we didn't even talk about, is their performance comes right up and you don't have to let them go. So that's a win-win where you don't have to start training someone. You don't have to go through the pain of letting someone go because it's tough on a manager and it's even tougher on the employees. So that's one of the areas I can help people.
Yeah, it is very much that because a good leader is very important because, and I think I brought this up before, Roy knows this, they say happy wife, happy life, but happy employee, happy employer or boss. And because they will perform in a better, you know, with encouragement. I believe a lot better with encouragement than they will if you've got somebody right there over top of you all the time, you know, in that particular mode. So this is great to be able to, you know, empower the person in leadership to become better so that the people that he or she oversees are better too because of it.
I've found that most people want to do a good job. They want to come to work. They want to be happy. You know, as long as they get what they need to do their job and they feel appreciated for what they do. You know, if they don't, then to me, there's the disconnect. You know, if people, and if they're doing what they like to do, they've got everything they need to do it, they will do it. No questions, you know. And I work for a guy that his deal was, I'll give you all the rope you need. You know, I hired you to do a job. I'm not going to micromanage you. I'll let you go. But then if I need to, I'm going to step in if you go too far or whatever, you know. But I mean, so I just always, I totally agree with what you're saying. If you get that person and you bring them up to where they want to be, then that makes all the difference in the world. You know, and it's just being able to go with that person and be vulnerable enough with them where they feel comfortable, especially if it's a personal problem. You know, say, well, you know, I've got this issue at home and I'm dealing with it, and you know, it doesn't go any farther than you two, you know, and they really appreciate the fact that you were interested and you were trying to help them out and you worked with them.
Yeah, and that's where employees, it takes some time to be vulnerable and build that trust. But when they finally do open up to you, and if you can help them in any way, and sometimes it's just listening and they just don't have anyone to talk to, and you just let them vent. And the next time you see them struggling in a day, you can just get them alone and ask a quick question. How you doing today? You know, and just shut up. Some of the best thing you can do is ask an open-ended question and just wait for an answer. Don't go away. Don't be pressured. Don't be tense. Just be relaxed and present. And they'll come up with something. and then just be understanding with whatever you hear. Don't be shocked.
Yeah. Well, I know you talk about leadership, and what I found out is, some people own a company and they think I, this is mine. I did this, I did that. But when you get right down to it, a company is the employees. That is who makes the company money, right? So
Yes, without employees, you have nothing.
yeah. So if you can develop, like you say, those employees as a team, where everybody's got their input, everybody's doing their part, to the whole, it makes a huge difference than these two are the guys you need to count on. Don't worry about these two, focus on these two. Well, then that demoralizes everybody else because they don't feel like they're ever going to have a chance to be one of those two.
Right? You need to treat everyone the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that means when you're walking down the hall, when you see the top two, and they come towards you, you give them a big smile. How was your weekend? How's it going? And you're kind of open and genuine with them. And in the bottom two, you may not realize it, but you walk towards them and you'll say hello, but it doesn't have the bouncy enthusiasm that you did for the other two. And you really need to have that bouncy enthusiasm for all of them and treat them the same, because people aren't stupid. They realize that you're treating people differently. And it's really about being fair and equal and giving everyone the same opportunity.
Yeah, I saw this early on in my career. I was in construction, and this big construction company, the owner of it, he'd come out on the job. It didn't matter. Every person he saw, he would stop and shake their hand. Hey, how you doing? I appreciate you being here. Appreciate your job. Is the guy sweeping the floor, the guy carrying out the trash, the guy digging the ditches, or the superintendent, the foreman, the project manager, everybody. If he went on that job, if there was 100 people there, he spoke to 100 people, period. And I mean, everybody.
That's a sign of a great leader.
Yeah, I mean, and then he had a great company, and the people that worked in his company, they were all like that. That was, everybody respected him because he treated everybody the same. Nobody was, his deal was, thanks for being on this job today and digging this ditch. We really need it done. I appreciate it. It wasn't, well, he's digging a ditch, I don't need to say anything. I mean, he was just that way, and he was well respected.
Yeah. So I would imagine, Jill, that is what you are creating, people like that, the leaders that someone like Roy will come back and say, you know what, this guy was wonderful. And I went from being unappreciated by this one person to I walk down the hall now and I'm doing better now because that person recognizes me. And I love that you're doing that. I think that that's important. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just a little side note, because when I was in the company I worked in, I was in charge of a lot of stuff. And one time when my oldest son was about maybe 12 years old, we went somewhere. I think he had a soccer game. And so on the way back, I said, I want to stop by this job. I need to see what's going on. And went on the job, and see what's going on. And of course, it was just my everyday stuff I did, right? And I go, hey, how's it going? I'd talk to everybody because, I mean, what the example fit set, I internalize it. I did the same thing, no matter what. Hey, how's it going? How you doing? Hey, I heard your son made a big touchdown football game, whatever. And so my son, he's 45 now. Last Father's Day, he wrote me a letter. And that letter, he said, Dad, I remember that day we went to that job in Arlington and you went to check on it and all the respect those guys had for you. He said, I remember that, And so, building those teams, getting those people up, lifting those people up is huge. It's huge. And I would think any company, that's what they would want.
And that's why they need to hire Jill, is to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my dream is to have people, because in the industries that I come from in healthcare, people move around a lot. Mm-hmm. And so they may work at one company for a year and a half, 2 years, and then they move to another company. And I'm hoping after I work with one company and they see what my management leadership styles are, that when they move to the next company, if it's a different type of manager who's not as appreciative and doesn't support their team, that either they start implementing what I taught them, or they then hire me to come over and help them at that new company. I don't care. I'm not in this to try and, help every company. There's not enough of me to go around, but I do want to see the workplace become a place where everyone wants to come to work every day. And I'd love that to just kind of spread like the butterfly effect and just make all of healthcare a better place. And then all of, any other company I work with.
So
I have
when
a
you,
question. Sorry, right, just quickly. I have a question for you, Jill. So do you find with the companies that you've worked for that the turnover has actually reduced, like it's gone down? I know that there's a lot of movement, but if someone's happy somewhere, that tends to reduce that turnover. Do you find that's happening?
Yes, it's reducing turnover. And so that's helping employers. And I'm trying to use that as a sales pitch, is like, listen, you're gonna have reduced turnover, but it's so hard. It takes so long to measure that. It's getting them to believe that that's the reality. But yes, it is reduced turnover because everyone's happy. People won't leave just to make 50 cents more an hour
right,
at a place
exactly.
down the street if they're being treated right where they are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when you go in to work with these companies, typically when you go, well, I don't hate to use typically, but when you go in and work with these companies and you start moving these people forward to where they are becoming a team and all that stuff, do they come up to you? Some of these people come up to you and say, "Oh man, I'm glad you're here because I've been here 3 years and nobody ever asked me X, or nobody ever cared how I felt about this, or whatever." Do you see a lot of that?
Yeah, I'm seeing people who have been in positions and they're stuck and they know that they don't know the next steps to take forward. And I can unlock that and ask the right questions and help them be able to move forward. A lot of leaders try things that they've seen done before or what they thought would work. And they get to a certain point and they're like, I can't hire any more people. I got to get more out of the people I have. And then I'm able to help them. I'm like, listen, you're probably right. You have enough staff here, and let me show you a different way to access them.
I think that's really important what you said, that you're able to get things out of them, because I remember that I was at a company and we did have a leadership coach come in and they took all of us employees aside and interviewed us, and there were things I didn't want to say and I'm sure I wouldn't say. It probably would have been to my benefit, but there's always that fear that, as much as it is confidential, it's still scary to sometimes divulge what you're really feeling. So if you're capable of doing that, that is an amazing asset to be able to have that.
I'm an empathy coach, and so I lead by empathy. And I know what it's like to be in the other person's shoes, the person who's told that, if you can't keep up with the amount of prescriptions we need to fill, then I'll replace you with someone who can. Yeah. And, I've heard things like that. So I tell these people to step in the shoes of their employees for a moment. And when you do that, then sometimes light bulb goes off. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get people to work with empathy. But when they do, it really unlocks the other side.
Now, you ever had a position where, okay, so I did own my own business and there was a difficult moment where the gentleman was having marital problems. His wife left him, such or whatever. And it took him, I think I took a little bit too long to get in there because I was being too empathetic, because I had gone through a divorce and I know what it feels like. So I'm sitting there for 3 months. He wasn't making me the income that really should be coming into the business. And it's not, and I hated the thought of putting him as a number, but business, there is that need for the numbers, unfortunately, but it's true. And I've seen that. And so I understand even employers that sit there and go, you're not doing what you need to be doing. You're not reaching your targets. I get that. But I was at the point where I didn't know what to do, because I didn't want to destroy his life further by saying, you're not performing. Bye. It was a tough, that was really tough for me.
And sometimes being empathetic, you feel like you're not giving them enough runway. But let me ask you a question. So if you kept him on 6 months after that point where you were like, I'm not getting anything out of it, had he turned the corner and was he giving you more than he was for the previous year as far as productivity?
Not more.
No,
It was like there was the 3 months that were really, really painful, really hurt my business. But then when things were starting to adjust and get better, it wasn't exceeding anything. I did eventually let him go, but it was not easy. But I did, again, I waited until things were better. But the thing is my business suffered for those 3 months because I wasn't taking those steps to say, why don't you take the time off, bring somebody else on? But being in a small town, that would probably mean that he wouldn't be coming back. Small business.
And yeah, and small businesses, it's tough, especially now. People are going out with COVID, or they think they have COVID, and you're telling them to stay at home. Well, are you paying them, or you're not paying them? It is really hard as a business owner to figure out what's right, what's fair, in that's a whole nother ball game right now.
You know, one thing you said is like, you're talking about that in 6 months they can be better. Well, I ran into a deal where I was in charge of the manpower. It was electricians, okay? So we had this really great guy. He could do anything. Man, he was crackerjack, but he missed 1 day a week. You know, there's always something going on. Okay. Then I had this other guy. He was okay. He wasn't the best electrician, but he was there every day. He was on time. If you need him to work overtime, he would work. So so the owner goes, how come you keeping this guy? All these guys. I said, look, Kelly, he's not the best electrician we got, but he's one of the best employees we have. And I said, so I'd rather take him over this guy, even no matter how good he is, because I can't depend on him. This guy, he's here on time every day. I said, so for me personally, I'm going to take the employee over the best electrician. And he goes, all right, fine with me. You know, but so that was something I always looked at, is not just their skill, but how good of an employee are they too? So
yeah, employee skill is something, because as a team, everyone's looking at each other like, how much are they contributing? And of course, they're not fair in what they think the other person is contributing. So that one who showed up every day and was very consistent but not the best may not know that he wasn't the best. He just knew he was loyal and he showed up, and that was his job, was to be there and to work the overtime when you needed it. And the other employee who was fantastic at his job, he probably knew he was a little bit better than the others, but let his life just get out of control, and it worked for him. And it didn't work as well for you, and that's tough as a manager on what to do.
Well, it's like, basically our business, it's production-oriented business. You're there to produce, and when you don't produce, you don't stay. That's the reality of it. So it's like all right, we have a minimum 100 prescriptions a day you got to fill. That's your quota you got to do. Well, if you're not getting 100, well, listen, we're gonna have to find somebody that can. Right? I mean, it's not a real good comparison, but I mean, it's basically the same thing. It's production oriented. You have to perform. They expect so much out of you. And if you can't do it, we'll find somebody that can. So. But
it's tough once employees start feeling like the number, though. And then that's when they start to disengage and they want to pull back, and they say, well, if you want 100 prescriptions, then I'll give you 100, but I'm not giving you 110, even though I could. So when you start to put numbers on things and people realize that you need to just hit that minimum, you start getting the minimum out of people.
Yeah, exactly.
When you start treating them like people and appreciating them for the value of what they do with no numbers associated with it, then they'll give you 150 prescriptions.
Yeah.
And and they'll do that with a smile on their face every day.
Well,
Love that.
yeah,
And
the,
so
I
the
love
owner
that.
of that company, he was very smart because his deal was the employees, the employees, the employees. I mean, he took us on trips, all kind of stuff, and we made him a millionaire. But his deal was, us in the office, we're just support. That's all we are. The people out there on the jobs are the ones where the money's made. So he wanted to make sure they were happy, and so, and it paid off for him. And we all loved working there, and we killed ourselves. You know, it was the best company I ever worked for, made the most money in my life there. And that was the happiest I was. I mean, I was working a lot, but still, I loved it. I loved it. I hate it when
And that's what Jill is saying. You weren't a number.
Yeah.
You were somebody that mattered. And when you're somebody that matters, it doesn't work for everybody. But I think that the majority of people, it does work for. You work harder. And yes, you do give your 150% versus your like 99.9.
Some people are just going to do enough to get by, period. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Very neat.
Yep. If you can take that person who's just getting by and tap into that and get them to really fully engage in work, you get so much extra productivity out of them. It's just amazing. Like I worked with people for a few months before I realized, like, you know what, let me try and push this person, but not push this person. Kind of just, hey, why don't you try this, and open them up to different things. And next thing you know, they were doing a lot more for me that I had no idea they had in them.
I think,
and that's
I think that's a good point too, though, because it can become mundane and repetitive if you don't continually at least have some. It doesn't have to be a big growth or a big thing, but give it, instill a little bit of oh, this is different today. And yeah, I think that that's really important too. If we're doing the same thing every morning, getting up doing the same thing every day, it becomes difficult to keep our attention on it and enjoying it. So I like that.
So how does it feel when these people that you've been working with, especially the ones that are kind of the marginal people that you've been able to kind of bring up, and how does it feel when you're leaving that company and all these people come up to you and tell you, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you came. You've done so much for me. I'm much happier here. And all that stuff.
I mean, people have said to me things like, you've opened our hearts, and we had no idea that we had so much in us. Other people are, you believed in me, and you were the only one that could see I had potential, and you let me try this new thing. And that's part of the, okay, well, today we're going to stretch you in a little way and see what sticks. And when you do that, people have grown, and they're different people when you leave than when you started working with them. And that's a great feeling to know that you help someone grow.
Yeah, it's almost better than money, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jill, how can our people reach out to you?
So I'd love for people to reach out to me, and they can book me on my website, which is UpLevel To Lead. So UpLevel with the word to spelled out, lead.com.
Okay.
And they can book a 60-minute Zoom call with me. I have a bit.ly link for that. So it's the bit.ly/Zoom Jill.
Okay.
I figured Zoom Jill, and if you can remember my name, you can do that. And I can do a free 1-hour coaching session. This is not a sales call, it is pure coaching. And if you decide you wanted a potential sale after that, we'd book another call to discuss that. This is 60 minutes of pure coaching. Okay. And I'd love to do that with anyone who's interested in learning how to lead with empathy.
Love it.
Perfect. Perfect. That's so good. Did you have anything else, Lorianne?
I don't. I'm very, very grateful for you being here today. I love that lead with empathy. I think that that's really important. Mm-hmm. And I think I've learned a lot today in the sense that there are ways to do things that, hindsight might have been a good thing, But it's good to, it's never too late to learn, right? So thank you for being here, Jill. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure to speak with both of you today, and I had a great time on your podcast. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you so much.